Gillian Arnold, who's the chairperson for BCS Women, wasn't able to come along today, so she asked if somebody else would do that. So that's why I'm here. I'll tell you a little bit about BCS and BCS Women, things we do, and talk about one of our most recent successes. BCS used to be known as the British Computer Society, now known as the Chartered IT Institute for IT. I think to make it clear that it's an institute about professionalism and that IT is a profession, so there is a professionalism council, and looking a lot at that. Now in the BCS they have branch meetings, so the branches are based on location, so cities around the UK and other parts of the world where the BCS has a presence. And we also have specialist groups, and if you're a woman, apparently that's a specialism, so we have BCS Women. So the specialist groups might be focused on compilers or informatics or that kind of thing, but there, as I say, there's one for BCS Women. It was founded back in 2001 by Sue Black, who has become a bit of a hero in the UK. She saved Bletchley Park, or was fundamental in saving Bletchley Park from closure, and that had a very important history for us. So that's BCS Women. We're focused on providing the right kind of networking and support for our members, and actually women who are not our members but are connected to us in some way, as well as doing some things about encouraging women into IT as a profession. And as part of that, I guess it's the attraction to IT and retention within IT. So today we've already discussed retaining women, keeping them in and helping them grow their careers in technology. So we run lots of events through the year. The Karen Spark Jones Lecture, it's an annual event, so it honours women who are in computing research, and there are a number of others. So the Hopper Colloquium, again women's speakers talking about their research in computing science and related fields. Most of these events get a number of women at it, so hundreds, something like that, a couple of hundred women. The Lovelace Colloquium, that's run for students who are in computing science. They're encouraged to bring along a poster, so there's a competition, and at the day-long event. Flossie, that's focused on our female-focused open source specialist group. So our women members who are associated with open source, and as well as the Flossie conference, we run a number of open source taster days. So getting a handle on what open source means and how it impacts us. A bunch of other things. So Ada Lovelace, on her birthday, we normally try and do something. So last year we ran a number of editathons for Wikipedia to get more women into Wikipedia, get more females there, and add to the profiles that were already there, just so some more facts about them. We've recently launched a mentoring program within BCS Women, but also actually influenced the rest of the BCS. So there's now a tool, or certainly there's a tool that's going to be launched to help with some of the relationships on mentoring and help people in their careers. The Careers in IT for Women workshop, that came out of discussions about getting children and students interested in IT as a career. I think because if you say you want to be a doctor when you grow up, there's lots of different things a doctor could be. They could be an anaesthetist, they could be a general practitioner, they could be a surgeon. There's lots of things, but everyone has in their head a fairly clear idea of what a doctor might be. But if you say I want to work in technology, what does it mean? It's really hard to explain. So this was about educating some students, but also teachers and careers advisors about what's there, because a lot of the careers advice is out of date. There's so many possibilities, they just find it really hard to keep up. So that's what that was about. There's also an unconscious bias program that we've launched this year, not just focused on gender as a diversity, but I think that's probably where it's come out of. And so we've been educating people who are in the senior levels of the BCS about unconscious bias, making them think about where they may bias and didn't know about it. And we're now rolling that out to all the different member groups as well. Gillian gets involved in lobbying the UK government, what they need to be doing. I think she has a tough job because every few years the ministers change and they then say, so what's the problem with women in IT? And you have to say the same stuff all over again. I think she's getting a bit tired of repeating herself. We also run local events, and that's where I'm really involved. I do quite a number in Scotland. We've now got a team of people in Scotland running events. So whether it's networking and helping people understand why networking is important, or communicating, we don't always pick technical subjects because the branches very often run technical subjects. So we like people to go along to those as well. I'm really conscious that if women only ever network with women, much as it's a fantastic thing to do, if they only network with women, they're only networking with 20% of the population of IT. So we need to encourage them to go to branches as well. These are the most active committee members. We wanted to give them recognition. So everyone there will either run a conference, Gillian's the chair, I run a number of events in Scotland, as I said. So everyone that's on that list really has a really active role within BCS Women. I should point out that this is entirely voluntary. So there are paid positions within the BCS, but in order to make the BCS Women group run as a specialist group, it's entirely voluntary. So what we were really asked to focus on is the campaign we've just completed in May. And a bit like you have an advent calendar, and I assume everyone has an advent calendar, but maybe not. When it comes to Christmas, you open a different door every day until Christmas Day. And it used to be when I was little that it was a little picture of something Christmassy, and now it's chocolate. So that's quite good for me, not so good for children's teeth these days. So we did a similar idea for May, and for every day in May, we profiled a woman who is a role model within the United Kingdom. Some of them are members of the BCS Women group, some of them are in corporates, some of them are journalists, and I would encourage you to have a little look, just Google it and you can get all the different names. But certainly very high profile people. One of the girls who launched METS in the UK, she thinks she was I think she was the youngest maths graduate or something like that. She had quite a brain behind her, but certainly lots of interesting people. The point was to say women in IT exist and they do some really interesting things. So for each of those days there was a blog with the woman. Sometimes there was a video as well of her saying some, an interview, that kind of thing. One of the ladies in BCS Women, I think she did a very clever thing. In her blog, she said 5 tips for men and 5 tips for women, and I thought that was particularly useful because so much of the preaching is at women, but we do need to encourage men or give men the knowledge of what they can do to make the place different for us as well. But just before we launched this Women in IT programme, and we got quite a lot of success with a number of tweets. We featured in a number of publications in the UK, so Computing and CIO and The Guardian, and the list goes on. These are some statistics that we got before the launch of May. I thought they're quite interesting. So most people think that having women in IT would make a big difference. Only 5% thought it wouldn't make any difference at all, and the rest were probably ambivalent, didn't really mind too much. A number of people think it's quite difficult. In fact, 53% of people think it's difficult for women to return to IT if they've taken a break for maternity purposes. Although it says here just career break, and I guess it might not be maternity. The stuff at the bottom I thought was quite interesting. I'm not going to read every one of these because if you get the slides later then there's no need for me to read them all out. But the factors that participants feel are most necessary for a career in IT are an interest in technology, and that probably does help. A logical mind, and that interesting, going back to talking about if we teach people how to code then it helps them with logic. Common sense. Now I don't know about you, but when I was at university, I was lacking in common sense. My mum used to say I was brains and no common sense. That was the phrase that she used, and I think some of that comes with learning. But with our learning common sense, most people have the ability to get it, and just general computing skills and literacy. So it's quite interesting to see what people think are the requirements. A more formal collection of scores, and I'm not necessarily going to read them all out to you. I just wanted to make you aware of it. To combine with the 31 days in May, we ran a scorecard exercise with eSkills in the UK to understand what are the percentages and where do women lie and that kind of thing, what the pay gap is. Some really interesting figures in there, which I can't remember all of them, unfortunately, or I'd reel them all off for you. It basically says there's work to be done. I think some good things have happened and some things are getting better, but there's still a huge way to go. And I think that almost, we can see that in the reflection that it's not just women or girls who are not thinking about STEM anymore. That, you know, a lot of boys are choosing not to study STEM subjects as well. So I think that the challenge doesn't go away. It's just slightly different depending on your gender. So that's BCS. That's me. If you ever need to get in touch. I don't know if you want to ask any questions just now, or if you want, maybe from a timing perspective, would it be better to do at the end?
You can ask maybe a couple of questions now.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody has some.
It's more of a comment on one thing you mentioned in your presentation. You want a survey about saying that a fair percentage of people say that it will benefit the workplace to have more women. It's like for elections, you have a discrepancy between what the polls say, and what you elect in the end. I meet a lot of male entrepreneurs, male CEOs and so on. They say, yeah, I would like to have more female in the workplace. But when it comes to recruit them, often they say, yeah, but what if she doesn't mix with the current guys in the team? Or what if she gets pregnant? Or the usual. So it's good to see that a fair percentage is for it, but there is a discrepancy between the usual situation.
They're UK-based statistics. One of the things you can't say out loud in the UK is, what if she's going to get pregnant? What if she's going to get married? I don't know the rules in the rest of Europe, never mind the rest of the world, but it's not. You just don't do it. So yeah, they might have to think about it, but they certainly shouldn't be thinking about it out loud.
Yeah, but often there are also
worried for all sectors. Yeah, would be.
Yeah.
Not only in ICT.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But they are also worried about the team spirit, like having a girl will bring problems. Or that's what I experience often when I speak with them.
When I'm so in my normal day job rather than BCS, if I think about when I've worked on projects where we've gone out and delivered things for a client, and I'm normally the one of few females, and I'm probably the only technical female, the others less technical, so maybe a business analyst or a project manager, something like that. Generally it's, oh, that's the girl in the group, she can be the social secretary. So as in, she's the one who arranges all the events. So depending on how it looks, your gender can be abused in that way. They just assume you want to arrange things. And I have had the experience of, I pack my suitcase on a Sunday night, not anymore, but pack my suitcase on a Sunday night, go away on a Monday, come back on a Thursday. And it can be quite lonely if everyone else goes to the pub to watch the football and they haven't said to you that's what they're going to do because they assume you're a girl and that you don't like football. Now, I don't like football. The World Cup moment doesn't interest me at all. I like rugby and Formula 1 and cricket and golf. There are plenty of other sports in there, but that one, and I would get left out. And if I didn't overhear and then just invite myself along, I would get missed because people just have that. And again, that's not only applicable to ICT, but when the percentages are so low, it's much more noticeable.
Excuse me, maybe I've lost it. When did you start with the group, the women?
So BCS Women started in 2001.
2001.
2001, yeah. So it was Sue Black who started that one up for us. And she's still in our committee, but she's less active because she's doing all sorts of other things like workshops for mums to get them back in, or into coding, not necessarily back into coding, but to help them find a career in IT because she's found that's been particularly useful for her.
That is a long time. I mean, you can see that you have done a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
There really is an impressive array of activities that BCS are undertaking, and it strikes me that BCS, I know you're as a volunteer and there are many volunteers, but BCS is probably the largest computer society in Europe in terms of the resources and the staff that they have at their disposal. And many of the other computer societies would look at this and think that's fantastic, and I would love to be able to do that. I would love to have the resources, and oftentimes they don't. So a question for you would be, if in recommending to a computer society that is not the size of BCS, if you had to select maybe the top 3 activities that you think are feasible with let's say, low resources in terms of staffing, but also impactful in terms of the change that they affect? What would you, I know this is a tough question to throw at you.
And it's partly difficult because I'm not involved in organising all the events, so I can tell you which ones are more time consuming than others. But what I would say is we would be very happy to talk to anyone who wanted to talk to us, because every organisation is bound to have a slightly different problem or it's slightly different. So maybe 3 would apply to one country, but a different 3 would apply to another. There might be some who have fewer problems with students, maybe, and maybe more they want to focus more on back to work. So I would, rather than prioritise 3, I would say have a chat with us, and we'll take you through the things that we do. What are our best practices? How do we advertise events? That kind of thing. What does it take to arrange? How much project management skills does it need? And that. So we'd be happy to do that anytime.
Thank you very much. And maybe just one follow-up question from that then. You mentioned that you had a mentoring tool that was going to be launched soon.
I don't think it's been launched just yet, but it's to help people find mentors and help mentors find mentees. Now, there's a little bit of me that worries about it, because if I'm going to have a mentor, I like somebody that I kind of work quite well with, or that there's a connection. But it will hopefully open doors to people that are in different industries or different jobs, to give you a different perspective on what you're doing, and perhaps help you through your career.
Okay. And is that a standalone tool, or is it integrated with Sphere Plus, for example?
I don't know if it's integrated with Sphere, but it is a BCS members tool, so you need to be a member to use it.
Okay.
Once again, because I think I missed it, what does BCS stand for?
So we're trying to move away from BCS and just say BCS. So BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. I think because it's an organisation, so partly moving away from just the computing side of things, because it's to some people who are very pedantic about language, it can mean very specialist set of stuff, and actually we cover an awful wide portfolio within the industry. But also, because BCS was the British Computer Society, and we're around the world, we don't only apply in the UK, so there are branches around the world. So it's not just British anymore.
Okay.
That's it. Excellent.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.